So Bryan, how do we as followers of Jesus stay faithful to the biblical view of sexuality and gender, yet remain welcoming to those who do identify as LGBT?
Yeah, I love this question because it expresses this desire to be biblically faithful, but understanding in order to be biblically faithful, it involves grace and compassion. It's a part of orthodoxy. Orthodoxy is beyond just kind of knowing, hey, I got my theology right, but it's theology and practice, which is grace and truth. And Jesus was the full embodiment of grace and truth. He wasn't the balance of grace and truth. He was 100% grace. He was 100% truth. And I think oftentimes where we get messed up is that we, based on personality or experience, we tend to prefer one over the other. And the thing that we have to do, and I don't mean to be trite when I say this, but we need to become as much like Jesus as possible. Yeah. So this call to follow him, to deny ourselves, to deny our own ideas and instincts and thoughts, and embrace his idea, instincts, and thoughts, to become like him. So, I mean, God has given us no provision in and of our flesh to be a Christian. The only way that we live this Christian life, it's Christ in me, the hope of glory. Or as Paul says, it's no longer I who live, but it's Christ living in me. That only way that we'll have the full embodiment of grace and truth in a situation is for the life of Christ to live through us. And so we need to become like him. If we pursue one at the expense of the other, we get neither. Someone told me, I love this analogy about, it's like, an airplane has two wings. And it's not like you can choose, one wing over the other. If you only have one wing, you have no flight. The only way that you fly is both. And the only way that we fly as Christians is we have both. And the only way that you get both is to pursue Jesus, to become like him. And I mean, this is just, the older I get, the aspect of Jesus that really just blows my mind is that he was able to be friends and associate with people that he profoundly disagreed with. So he was called the friend of sinners, and yet he was sinless. He was nothing like those he associated with. I heard one pastor say that people who weren't like Jesus liked Jesus because he loved them and was willing to associate with them, even though he didn't agree with them. And the only way that you can hold that tension, no one can hold that tension except Jesus. And the only way you can do that is to become like him and to enter his life, or I should say it this way, have his life live through you. And so to be able to hang out with, the tax collectors and prostitutes and even enter the home of religious leaders. So he was wanting to reach them as well. I think that's the key for us, and not to get in the trap like, hey, I'm just going to be compassionate. I'm okay fudging on the truth, not getting my lines all, but I'm going to err on being compassionate. If you do that, you'll neither be a person of truth or be a person of compassion. Or on the other side, if you're like, I'm just going to stick on truth and I'll fudge on compassion, you will neither be a person of compassion or a person of truth. You need both. And one of the statements too that is said of Jesus in Hebrews chapter 2 is that it says that he was not ashamed to call us brothers. And it doesn't mean that we don't act shamefully, but he's not ashamed to be around us. And I just think like that's so huge that we shouldn't be ashamed or hesitant to be around others and to really associate with them, to bring our love, our compassion, our presence, and to see them as they are. And but yet through our life, people know what you believe. I mean, most people you don't have to always say it. I mean, people know what angle you're coming from. So I think that should free us just to be loving and welcoming, and at the right time, be able to express, hey, this is what Jesus says. And that's what discipleship is all about. Yeah. You lead people to a place to where they meet Jesus. We don't preach morality. We preach resurrected life, the hope in Jesus. Now, once they say, hey, I see Jesus in you and I see Jesus in this community, And I want him. I want that. Then comes discipleship, which is like, okay, like all of us, we need to be willing to ask those who want to follow Jesus to put at the foot of Jesus everything that they are, including their sexuality, in their view of themselves, their own identity, and put it in submission to the lordship of Jesus and say, come with us as we follow him. Let's throw ourselves toward him. He's our hope. He's what we're after. And we all do this together. And, but not, so anyway, so I think we pursue Jesus, follow Jesus, we show people Jesus. And then once they say, hey, I'm ready to turn from my old life, like Jesus said, go and sin no more. So yeah, this is what discipleship looks like, but that's after they meet Jesus, not before.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And that's a helpful challenge of not to hang out on one of these wings too heavily, one and miss both. So how would you encourage someone who's maybe hanging out more on one of these wings, either compassion or truth, to help meet more of that middle helpful ground?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's not as safe as a place as you think it is. So most people make that statement to be safe. Like, I don't know what to do to move. So if they're to move toward truth and so if you're a compassion person, to move toward truth where there's edges and lines, that feels unsafe. And so you stay in a safe place. Or if you're on truth, that you love the lines and the edges, but like to go over to compassion is messy. And will I be compromising? I mean, all good questions. Will I be compromising? Is that the wrong thing to do? Like, it feels unsafe. So to the truth person, compassion feels unsafe. To the compassion person, truth feels unsafe. And the idea in following Jesus, no one ever said it'd be safe. Innocent as doves, wise as serpents. I'm sending you like sheep among wolves. When does that ever turn out good for the sheep? Never. And so I think it's about embracing that life. And again, I said this earlier, but I know it's trite, but we really have to press into Jesus. If you're trying to live this Christian life, so if you're trying to be compassionate in your own strength, if you're trying to abide by the truth in your own strength, this Christian life isn't about you doing what you think a Christian should do. This Christian life is about Jesus, the power of Jesus living in and through you. And it just causes us to rely more on him. And so I know that sounds like obvious and trite, but it's leaning into him. When we feel unsafe, when we feel unsure, it's not giving into our fears and insecurities, but it's laying our insecurities and fears at the feet of Jesus and allowing his power to be perfected in our weaknesses.